What if I told you that somewhere in the archives of a forgotten Soviet psychiatric facility, there exists documentation of a melody so devastating that a single hum could steal an entire year from your memory? What if this wasn't just another urban legend, but a carefully documented psychological weapon that claimed the minds of dozens of test subjects before vanishing into the shadows of history? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most disturbing and lesser-known experiments of the Cold War era, the story of Melodia 47, known in classified documents as the song that erased memories. Before we begin, I need to warn you, this story contains descriptions of psychological torture, human experimentation, and the complete destruction of human consciousness. If you're sensitive to these topics, you might want to skip this one. For everyone else, make sure you're subscribed, because stories like this don't surface very often. In 1953, deep within the Siberian wilderness, stood the Krasny Ugel Research Facility, a name that roughly translates to red corner. To the outside world, it was listed as an agricultural research station. In reality, it housed some of the Soviet Union's most classified psychological warfare experiments. The facility was headed by Dr. Alexander Petrov, a neuropsychologist who had gained Stalin's attention with his theories about memory manipulation. Through auditory stimulation, Petrov believed that specific sound frequencies could disrupt neural pathways responsible for memory formation and retention. He proposed that the right combination of tones, rhythms, and harmonics could essentially delete portions of a person's consciousness. The project began with captured German scientists and political prisoners as test subjects. But what started as an investigation into interrogation techniques soon became something far more sinister. According to declassified documents that surfaced briefly in 1991 before being classified again, the breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a young composer named Dmitry Volkov, who had been imprisoned for allegedly spreading anti-Soviet sentiment through his music. Volkov was forced to work with Petrov's team, using his musical expertise to create what they called cognitive disruption sequences. The composer was told he was creating therapeutic music to help traumatized soldiers forget their battlefield experiences. He had no idea he was crafting a weapon that would destroy human minds. The first successful test occurred on March 15, 1954. A political prisoner known only as Subject 12 was exposed to what would later be designated as Melodia 47. The melody was simple, just 37 notes played in a specific sequence over 2 minutes and 18 seconds. It incorporated infrasound frequencies below the threshold of conscious hearing, combined with a haunting melody that seemed to bypass rational thought and speak directly to the brain's memory centers. Subject 12 was instructed to listen to the melody once. Within 6 hours, he had lost all memory of the previous year of his life. He couldn't remember his arrest, his trial, or his imprisonment. More disturbingly, he couldn't remember his daughter's death, which had occurred just months before his capture. The researchers were ecstatic. They had created what they believed to be the perfect interrogation tool, a way to erase specific memories without leaving physical evidence of torture. But they had underestimated the melody's power. During the second round of testing, something went wrong. Subject 19, a former German physicist, was exposed to the melody for what was supposed to be a controlled session. However, a recording device malfunctioned, causing the melody to loop continuously for nearly 4 hours. When researchers finally entered the testing chamber, they found Subject 19 sitting perfectly still, staring at a wall. He had lost not just 1 year of memories, but nearly his entire adult life. He could remember his childhood, but everything from age 16 onwards had been completely erased. He didn't recognize his own reflection. Even more disturbing was, what happened to the research staff? 3 technicians who had been monitoring the experiment complained of memory gaps. In the days following the incident, Dr. Anya Kozlov, Petrov's assistant, discovered she couldn't remember her wedding day, which had taken place just 8 months prior. It became clear that the melody didn't need to be heard consciously to be effective. Even brief exposure to fragments of the tune, or hearing someone hum it unconsciously, could trigger memory loss. Petrov became obsessed with perfecting his creation. He began testing the melody on facility staff, telling them they were participating in memory enhancement exercises. By late 1954, over 60% of the facility's personnel had experienced some form of memory loss. The situation spiraled further out of control when Dmitry Volkov, the composer who had created the melody, suffered a complete psychological breakdown. In his final recorded statement before his death, Volkov claimed that the melody had infected his mind. He said he could hear it constantly, playing in an endless loop in his head, gradually erasing his memories one by one. On December 3, 1954, Volkov was found dead in his cell. The official cause of death was listed as suicide by hanging, but witnesses reported that he had been humming the melody continuously for weeks before his death, and had progressively lost the ability to recognize anyone around him, including himself. The most chilling discovery came when researchers examined Volkov's final compositions. In his desperate attempts to escape the melody's influence, he had begun writing music specifically designed to counteract its effects. These antidote melodies were found scrawled on every available surface in his cell, the walls, his clothes, even carved into his own skin. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the story is what happened to the facility itself. In January 1955, contact with Krasny Ugal was lost. A team sent to investigate found the facility completely abandoned. Security cameras showed that on January 12, at approximately 3 in the afternoon, someone had played Melodia 47 over the facility's intercom system. Every person in the building, researchers, guards, test subjects, support staff, had simply walked away. They left behind personal belongings, ongoing experiments, even meals half-eaten on tables. It was as if everyone had simultaneously forgotten why they were there and wandered off into the Siberian wilderness. Most were found within a few days, scattered across hundreds of miles of frozen landscape. None of them could remember their names, their families, or how they had ended up in the middle of nowhere. Many had lost decades of memories. Some had regressed to a childlike state, able to remember only their earliest years. Dr. Petrov himself was found 3 weeks later, frozen to death just 50 miles from the facility. In his final journal entry, discovered in his coat pocket, he wrote, "I can hear it everywhere. In the wind, in my heartbeat, in the silence between thoughts. Each note takes another piece of me. Soon, there will be nothing left but the song." The Soviet government immediately classified the entire project as a state secret. All documentation was supposedly destroyed, though some files apparently survived in various archives. The facility was abandoned and officially doesn't exist on any maps. But here's where the story becomes even more disturbing. In 1978, a group of hikers in the region reported finding an old bunker partially buried in snow. Inside, they discovered recording equipment and hundreds of wax cylinders containing various musical compositions. One hiker later claimed he had briefly heard a haunting melody coming from one of the cylinders before the group decided to leave the area. All 4 hikers experienced memory problems within days of returning home. One forgot his wife's name. Another couldn't remember his profession. The third lost all memory of his military service. The fourth, most disturbingly, forgot how to read and write, skills he had possessed since childhood. Similar incidents have been reported sporadically over the decades. In 1985, a music researcher in Prague claimed to have discovered fragments of Melodia 47 in an unmarked Soviet recording. Within a week, he had lost all memory of his doctoral studies and had to be hospitalized. In 1993, a former KGB operative allegedly hummed a few bars of an unknown melody to a journalist during an interview about Soviet psychological warfare programs. The journalist later reported that he couldn't remember conducting the interview. Despite having recorded it, when he played back the recording, there were inexplicable gaps where the melody should have been, as if the audio itself had been somehow corrupted or erased. Most recently, in 2007, a group of urban explorers claimed to have found the ruins of what might have been Krasny Ugal. They posted photographs online showing abandoned laboratory equipment and what appeared to be musical notation carved into concrete walls. The posts generated significant interest, but within days, the images had been removed from all websites, and the explorers claimed they had never visited any such location. The question remains, does Melodia 47 still exist somewhere? Are there copies hidden in classified archives? Could someone accidentally recreate it? Some researchers theorize that the melody exploits a fundamental vulnerability in human consciousness, a specific frequency that disrupts the neural pathways responsible for memory consolidation. If this is true, then it's possible that similar melodies could exist naturally, or could be accidentally created by musicians, experimenting with certain combinations of notes and rhythms. There are whispers in certain academic circles about a forbidden frequency, a mathematical relationship between specific notes that should never be played in sequence. Some claim this knowledge is actively suppressed, while others argue it's simply a modern legend built on the foundation of Cold War paranoia. But consider this. How many melodies have you forgotten over the years? How many songs have you hummed absent-mindedly, only to later struggle to remember where you heard them? How do you know that what you can't remember wasn't taken from you, note by note, by some forgotten tune that still echoes in the dark corners of history? The story of Melodia 47 serves as a chilling reminder of how far humanity will go in the pursuit of power over the human mind. Whether this particular tale is entirely true, partially true, or a complete fabrication, it represents very real experiments that took place during the Cold War era. We know that both Soviet and American researchers conducted horrific psychological experiments on unwilling subjects. We know that sound and music have profound effects on human consciousness and memory. And we know that there are still thousands of classified documents from this era that may never see the light of day. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this story is not whether it's true, but whether it could be true. In an age where we're still discovering new ways that sound and frequency affect the human brain, the possibility of a melody that could erase memories doesn't seem quite as far-fetched as it once might have. So the next time you catch yourself humming an unfamiliar tune, or hear a melody that seems to come from nowhere, ask yourself, where did it come from? And more importantly, what might you be forgetting? If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most disturbing mysteries, make sure to subscribe for more stories that exist in the shadows between fact and fiction. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the dark corners of human history. And remember, some songs are better left unheard. Some melodies are better left unhummed, and some stories are better left untold. But since we've already told this one, the question is, will you remember it tomorrow? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.